All right, guys, so this is the first video of section 8.4, and on this foldable, you'll see 3 theorems. Now, these 3 theorems basically make up the entirety of 8.4. So if you can get these 3 theorems down, then you have 8.4 figured out. So make sure you take good notes, make sure you use highlighters, and paste this into your interactive student notebook when you're done to help you on your test. All right, so let's look at this first theorem. It's the triangle proportionality theorem. Okay, and this theorem tells us that if a line is parallel to one side of a triangle and intersects the other 2 sides, then it divides the 2 sides proportionally. The converse is also true. All right, well, here's a key word right here. These lines have to be parallel. So if this is our figure, CD and AB have to be parallel in order for us to be able to use this theorem. We have to know those are parallel. Okay, but if they are, and I'm going to use my highlighters, it cuts this proportionally. So I'm going to highlight each of these 4 segments a different color. Okay, and when I do, I can set up, let's say this color is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D. Okay, if these are parallel, then I can set up a proportion that A over B is to C over D. And I'm going to go ahead and color code these just as well. Okay, this is always true. All right, so let's look at this example over here. We do know that this and this are parallel. And because they're parallel, guys, I'm going to get out my highlighter and I'm going to highlight each of these parts. Okay, so I've highlighted, oh, I already have green. I don't have blue. There we go. Okay, so now that I have these highlighted, these are the 4 numbers that go into my proportion. So I'm going to say 33 is to X as 27 is to 18. Okay, now from here you should be able to do these pretty easily by now. Okay, so cross multiply, so 27x equals 33 times 18. 33 times 18, guys, is 594. And if I divide that by 27, I get x equals 22. There's my answer. All right. Same thing here. I'm going to have you do this one on your own, but I'm going to help you get started. We do know that these are parallel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight my 4 different colors. Okay, now one thing I want to go over before I let you figure it out is if this whole thing is 20, okay, this whole thing is 20 and this purple piece is X, this piece right here has to be 20 minus X. Okay, now you have what you should need to set up a proportion and solve. So go ahead, set up a proportion and solve, and then we'll go over it. All right, so you guys should have set a proportion. So 20 minus X over X equals 4 over 12. Okay, and then we're going to cross multiply. Now when you cross multiply, make sure this goes in parentheses. Okay, and when it goes in parentheses, remember that means you have to distribute the 12 throughout the parentheses. Okay, so when you do that, we get 4x equals 240 minus 12x. We do some algebra, we solve. You should have gotten x equals 15. All right, so let's look at the next theorem. Okay, so the parallel lines and transversals proportionality theorem. This theorem tells us that if 3 parallel lines intersect 2 transversals. Okay, so we have 3 parallel lines. So these 3 all have to be parallel. Now, guys, these do not have to be parallel, but we just need 2 lines that cut through these 3 parallel lines. then they divide the transversals proportionally. So once again, I'm going to highlight using different colors. Okay, and then if I let this color be A, this be B, this be C, this be D, my proportion that I would set up is A over B equals C over D. And if I go ahead and highlight, my A is purple, my B is green, C is yellow, and my D is blue. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this example. Now, I notice that these three lines are all parallel because these arrows tell me so, and then two transversals cut through them. So I'm going to get my highlighter, and I'm going to highlight each of the four sections a different color just to kind of help me visualize what I'm doing here. You're going to make a lot less mistakes if you use a highlighter. All right, now that I have everything highlighted, I'm going to go in and start my proportions. So I can say x over 12.5 is going to equal 12 over 15. Okay, so from here, I cross multiply. So I get 15x equals 12 times 12.5. 12 times 12.5 is 150. So 15x equals 150. Divide both sides by 15. I get x equals 10. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let you do this one on your own. If it helps you, make sure you highlight the four pieces in different colors, and then we'll go over it. All right, so when you set this up, 27 over 18 is going to equal x plus 10 over x. So I set that proportion right here. Now remember, this here, since there's more than one term, it has to go in parentheses. Okay, and when it goes in parentheses, that means we need to distribute the 18 through it. So you get 27x equals 18x plus 180. You do a little bit of algebra, you should have come up with x equals 20. All right, guys, this is the last of the three theorems. Now, this is the triangle angle bisector theorem. And it tells us that if a ray bisects an angle of a triangle, okay, so it has to bisect this angle if we want to use this theorem. So remember, when we bisect, that means it cuts it into two congruent angles. Anytime you have two congruent angles like we see over here, this one and this one, that tells us we can use this theorem. Okay, then it cuts the lengths proportional to the lengths of the other two sides. So once again, I'm going to highlight. Okay, there's my highlight. I'm going to label this side A, B, C, D. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and A is to B as D is to C. Okay, so my A is my blue, my B is my yellow, my D is over here in green, and my C is purple. Okay, so this is the proportion that we want. All right, so let's look at this first example over here. So like I've already pointed out, this angle is bisected because I have two smaller angles. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight each of these that are proportional into different colors. Just like that. Okay, and after I have my different colors, I can set up my proportions. So I have x over 8 is going to equal 12.5 over 10. Okay, from here I cross multiply. So 10x equals 8 times 12.5. I plug that in my calculator, that's 100. So 10x equals 100. Divide both sides by 10. I get x equals 10. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and let you do this last one on your own. If it helps you, highlight each of the sides, set up a proportion, and then solve, and then we'll go over it. All right, so I went through and I highlighted the 4 colors, and then I set up my proportions. So I have 10 over x equals 20 over 15. So I've set it up right here. I cross multiply, I get 20x equals 10 times 15, and 10 times 15 is 150. Divide by 20, I get x equals 7.5.